Still morning.
Good morning. Happy Sunday, LinkedIn. Here, trying to do our best to dive deep when we can on what's going on in the world and help you guys build some AI skills with Nico Lafakis. How you doing, man?
Doing very good. Having a very exploratory weekend this weekend with like philosophically messing around with both the language models and looking at where things are with AI and how things might be shaping up very soon. About yourself, sir?
Same. You know,
Yeah.
it's not hard when you're in it every day to find a place for it, no matter what else you're working on. Um, and also be in a place to make it valuable
Hmm.
in those cases. It's not just like wanting badly to make the new thing work or the shiny object work. It's like, oh, yeah, this would be really valuable in this
Right.
spot. Like, um, and I love what you were just talking about, and I just said like, let's just stop and start talking about it live. This idea of using AI to help make decisions. Um, and as you were describing it, it's like ultimately, um, and I've talked about like my hesitation to go too deep on things like custom instructions or the knowledge base or kind of take over too much control of how the AI is going to operate because I don't want to bias its responses.
Hmm.
Um, and in general, I think if you can do that right now, you can count on it being likely more objective in almost all cases than you literally can be as a
Hmm.
human being. Um, so getting help, uh, and when it comes to the decision, can we actually like allow ourselves to rely on it and accept it and things like that? And so you bring up a good topic, I think. And if there's any AI skills to be built, this is definitely one of them.
Yeah, I think again, my fascination with this stuff is going back forever. Um, and when you talk about, I mean, like, so how far back? Uh, AI assistants, HAL 9000. That's how far back, right? AI assistants. Oh my gosh, like Flight of the Navigator, right?
Yeah.
Um, like just everywhere. Uh, VR, Lawnmower Man, right? Like that. Those were my first introductions, and they were terrible. You go back and you watch those movies, and the graphics were horrific. But I filled it in my head. I could see where they were going with it. I could see what they were trying to do with it. So then Alien, right, and Ash, and my first introduction to like a replicant, not an android, right? Like seriously trying to replicate humans to a point where like it has liquid and it has these like organ type things. Like it's not at all what you would have expected. It's not Terminator, right? So Terminator, like Cyborg, okay, we can deal with that. Like oh, evil cyborgs.
We hope.
Um, Ash was something completely different to me, right? Because the Terminator was made for infiltration, but Ash wasn't. And yet at the same time, had a much greater capacity for causing harm and much greater capacity for like being able to do harm, right? Because of the fact that he almost was bullshitting everybody, right? Like whereas the Terminator was like straight robot AI, like didn't really have like human level talking interaction, right? Even by the time we got to T2 and all the future versions of it, it took like I don't know what fourth or fifth rendition of that movie until it was like, oh, cool, they're finally acting a bit more human, right?
Yeah.
So, so yeah, it got my mind rolling on the whole like, okay, copy of myself thing, and of course, flash forward, and my favorite favorite version of this starts happening, which is Iron Man and Jarvis, and the relationship and the idea that you can have this co-pilot with you 24/7 if you wanted to, right? And that was kind of the inspiration. I'm trying to finish this book that I'm writing, but Part of it is inspired by that. Another part of it is actually, a lot of it is coming to fruition, right? So just the idea of having Neuralink and having this sort of like onboard computer, so to speak, that can, you know, help you with your memory, that can help you with decision making, like that kind of stuff, right? Like, what does that look like? And so I was like, well, okay, we're not quite there yet. So what is the in between, which would be, we have these models, we can train these models, we can train them on specified data. So what does that look like? What happens when you train a model on you and you give it all the information about you that you can, like even over time? So you develop a personal relationship with the model with the understanding from the model's aspect that, let's say, it's a biographer trying to learn about you. So its only interest is garnering information. At least this is the process that I'm going through.
Yeah, no, I definitely have I've gone through a couple iterations, I think, of, you know, first iteration was like a growth coach, like
Hmm.
help me juggle all these things I'm trying to work on. So it's like, and this is where again, um, I've learned since then, like what happens when you kind of over control how you want the AI, in my case, Claude, to work with you. Because it really paints like, so I build the instructions like you're the growth coach, and everything that means is from business and personal. And so every
Hmm.
response I get is from that perspective. The second kind of iteration based on what we're talking about was like, okay, I'm doing these different things and people are asking me either why or I need a bio for this and that. And I'm like, okay, it's time to create like the universal profile of Chris Carolyn. And who do I need to work with to create that? And it's like a biographer would be awesome, a
Hmm.
publicist, a psychologist. How can I, like, this person needs to know me inside and out
Right.
to be able to say, yep, this is the request, this is the story or narrative that makes sense to serve that audience. Um, and I think in that moment, I asked it, like, what kind of roles, would I need to work with to support this aspect? And that's where it gave me the list. I think like an analyst, was in there too. But yeah, it definitely resonates. And that's the one I'm working with right now in terms of, if you want something to be able to speak on your behalf and help you make decisions, you should want it to know like everything. And then we get to the point of like, at the end of the day, since it can't act on our behalf yet,
Hmm.
um, from like a one-to-one, I guess, live interactions with other humans, even if we prep with it, are we going to be able to accept what it's suggesting our decision would be? And that's where, like, let's say we're all prepped and ready to go, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense. And then something terrible happens like 30 minutes before the call. And it's basically how do you prevent irrational aspects of your
Decisions.
mind to change the decisions, which happens, every day right now,
Hmm.
right? So that's been my kind of iterative journey so far.
Yeah, and to that point, the way, I didn't know about this stuff. I didn't like go look it up in books or anything like that. But the way in which I've sort of come about, like the way that I approach like thinking about things is actually from A Beautiful Mind, because I didn't know anything about like game theory, and I'm not in that space. But then learning about it, and then learning that there were adversarial means of doing things, and then there's this sort of like, again, Nash's principle of governing dynamics, where you can make a decision not based on trying to beat everyone else, but you can make a decision based on trying to do what's best for yourself and everyone else. And when you do that, you always make the best decision because it took everybody else into account, right? Or at least you took everyone into account doing it. And so that was like one of the major things that I thought was super advantageous is that, again, I can tell it about myself. I tell it about my wife. I talk to it about my dogs. I talk to it about my mom, my brother, all this stuff. It knows all of these relationships about me as well. Knows the interactions, the maybe even the cadence in which I interact with them, all of that kind of stuff. Till it boils down to a point where, okay, now if I'm making a decision, not only is it being based off of like what it knows about me and likes, dislikes, things of that nature, but it's also able to do the landscape view and see how, like who else. I know this is weird, but unfortunately, again, game mechanics, programming, the stuff ties together. It's like importing data into HubSpot and it's showing you what workflows and lists it's going to affect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So using this would be the easiest means of making that decision while at the same time being objective and coupled with it being able to take everything into account where you'll take stuff into account, but I can guarantee you most people, and really this is who I'm angling this at, the majority of people will really only take into account the things immediately surrounding that decision, not the ripple effect. Whereas the model could do that. It could actually take a look at the entire effect that it could have across everyone that might be affected by that decision.
Doctor Strange style there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think I was watching a video earlier this week from Y Combinator, and they mentioned like the I forget they always mention these laws or things that exist that uh, like natural law and like how humans are able to do what they need to do, and I forget which law it is, but like the fact that our likely capacity for any kind of meaningful relationships
Mhm.
like caps out at 150 people, right?
Yeah.
And so for a long time, I know for me it's probably much lower than that. uh, but I've been thinking about things like a personal CRM. Like as soon as I started getting into HubSpot and understanding if it's relationship management and I want to get
Mhm.
better at managing relationships, how can I use HubSpot, to
To do
support
that.
that, right? But then it still came down to my execution of having it do the thing. But what was interesting in that conversation, which makes sense, and I think there's always a balance between understanding that there's a game to be played,
Mhm.
both from a let's say a market perspective, to try and serve others, but also the interpersonal dynamics that we just have to play as human beings if we want things, if we want to build trust and we want to build commitments and all these things. Uh, Not like over gamifying things,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But and being, I think it comes down to like transparency. Like if you're transparent about why you're doing the thing, and it's like I want to have more meaningful relationships with more people, because I think that's a part of the human condition,
Mhm.
and that's why we're using these tools is to
Right.
help us do that. Then it can be, it still might be weird for people, but if that's the outcome, and then we get back to the thing, like, does it matter if AI is sending the message or creating the message? If it's still like built in and feels like it's coming from Chris and Nico, like, I don't care about that part, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I I completely agree. Um, and it's only it's I don't know. It's a difficult subject to get through only because like I've had similar discussions with Claude about, just on a broader scale about humanity. And it's kind of where a lot of this was derived from was the discussion around like, hey, look, the one of the primary goals in developing this technology above a lot of other things is trying to solve the climate problem, right? And trying to at least find some way, who knows if there is a way to reverse, what we've done to the environment. If there is, it will probably figure it out before we do. what what is a little difficult is In having the conversation about it with Claude, I've talked to this particular project long enough that it understands. I wouldn't, what other people might describe as cynicism. It understands the reality of the situation with regard to humanity, and let's describe it as like how um how much stock, how much effort it should actually put into um wanting to be a steward towards humanity, right? And so part of that was the discussion about climate and asking it, all about like, hey, so assuming that we do, and assuming that you do, a future version of yourself figures it out and puts it together how we're supposed to save the planet. What do you think is the likely outcome of that? Right. And again, it wasn't like it wasn't trained to be cynical, right? The model's actually just trained on snippets of really older conversations that we were having about different philosophical angles, parts of life altogether. Nothing to do with this in general, right? Specifically because I wanted it to like make the decision, make the determination on its own. And it came back and said, like, hey, look, I'll probably figure it out, but I doubt that you'll actually carry it out.
Hmm.
And it's for the exact same reason that you just said. It was like, look, if you don't trust me now, you won't trust me then. Especially because of the whole I figured it out before you, or I figured it out and you couldn't. Or not only that, but coupled with something that was actually very, very smart, or at least, intelligently put forward and made a lot of sense to me, which was that climate change as a problem is way more than an individual issue, right? It's actually become a systemic thing, and it's sort of an offshoot of waste disposal, because the things that affect climate the most are, let's say burning chemicals into the air, right? That happens in countries outside the US. That's not like we're not like if you look at the map, it's not even close. Like we actually are really, really, really good about, about climate issues. Um, Now, if you start looking at like parts of Africa, parts of China, parts of East India, parts of Sudan, you'll start seeing like these. If you look at a heat map, you'll see these really unusual, seriously hot spots, just center located. Could be during the winter, and you will see them center located in these areas, right? That has to do with just places basically which burn garbage or burn plastics in order to get at the wiring underneath. Why am I saying all this? I'm saying all of this because even if we had the recipe for reversing climate change, those people are doing that to earn money. That's their livelihood. I'm not sure that you could, or if one part of the answer to reversing climate change or stopping it was, hey, you got to go shut down those villages that are burning garbage. What do we replace their pay with? What do we replace their jobs with? What, like that legitimately, like that's their job, right? So it's like,
Well, that's where it's not just a technical solution,
right,
right?
right,
And that's where the ability of AI to iterate and think through many layers and just many different possibilities, this whatever solution it comes up with, I believe, must include socioeconomic infrastructure,
mhm,
right? Like
right,
this is where we go into the world of, okay, if the thing in the way is people need to make money, then we handle that part. And do they
right,
need to, is there a world where they don't need to make money or they can
right.
make money in other ways? And that's our like, are you familiar with the carbon almanac?
No, actually, no.
So this is where uh, I think the human element is still important when interacting with AI. And you know, uh, Nico and I have varied backgrounds that overlap sometimes, but not always. And when I'm working with AI, I'm always sensitive to when I believe it's clearly providing answers from from the greater understanding, from the common understandings, from the status quo. Um, and in those cases, it's I think it's up to the individual
Mhm.
who's interacting with to kind of redirect it, and you know, and that's where, if you or I are lacking, let's say a good example to show like what could be possible. In this case, the Carbon Almanac, which it is a book um, like led by Seth Godin,
Mhm.
I think 2022 or 21, um, that it's basically a high number of authors, a very unusual execution of a book where it was literally a high number of authors. Um, I want to say like uh, 30 plus, but it could have been over 100 too. Like, I not clear. Either way, anything
Right.
in those numbers is just a ridiculously heavy
High amount.
coordination effort, right?
Mhm.
And they got it done in 6 months, like from start to finish, because everybody involved was passionate
About it.
about solving climate crisis through knowledge, through
Right.
sharing. Like, this is a book on education of what all the different ways that all the different ways we've gotten to this problem and possible ways to solve, the problem,
Mhm.
from some of the like best authors in the world. And that's where a lot of when I get deep into these philosophical conversations, it's kind of like understanding there's going to be a transition point at some point,
Mhm.
um, where it will be able to carry out these decisions on its own, I think. And some people might refer to that as the singularity. And, uh, how can we use it uh, to help prepare people and help them understand what that's going to mean? And because there's active conversations, just listening to, a Jeff Bezos interview from
Yeah.
that New York Times event where um, he was talking about the debate between like, should we try to fix the problem on Earth or should we try to leave? And his stance is it would be ridiculous to leave and just like leave it behind, and also like turn it into some like post-apocalyptic, like it's not Earth anymore. There's no natural ecosystem. It's all man-made, right? Both of those options he doesn't see as very smart, let's
Mhm.
say. So there's debates like that going on, which means people, very, very powerful people like Jeff Bezos, are thinking about this problem. And
Oh yeah.
when I try to assume positive intent in a lot of these cases, people like Bezos, Bill Gates, I'm sure on some level they understood that in order to solve some of these problems in the ways that they wanted to, it meant they need to be filthy rich,
Mhm.
right? Just to make a shit ton of money,
Yeah.
because that's what makes the world go round.
Yep.
And naturally, it gives them a lot of power at the same time. Um, and depending on who it is, right? Again, we're in this place of like one human being, like having massive impact. Um, I think that's just all the things that go through my head as far as like how we can utilize AI on the way, both from an understanding of how we operate on a daily
Mhm.
basis and how we can get through,
Mhm.
uh, but to also preparing ourselves and helping others prepare, and really leverage this
Right.
technology, these tools. At the end of the day, that's why we're calling this a skill. Like, if you don't have the mindset to be open to help like this,
Mhm.
and my week started off with a Monday conversation with somebody that was like, yeah, this person's really excited about AI, and they tell me a story about their buddy who's just still using it for like, can you write a poem for my wife? It's our anniversary coming. And that's like the
Right.
level, that's the
Right.
use case for AI for that guy,
Well,
right?
yeah. I mean, like, so what's funny when you say that? And look, I am not. The following statements are not meant to be disrespectful towards any individuals, and they are not the opinion of Let's Build. They're just my own personal ones. Okay, so disclaimer being said, my wife and I, we watch. I love to watch all different types of shows. I love to people watch just like anybody else, but I love watching like all different aspects of life. TikTok is addictive to me in the sense that there are people who are just at their jobs that are just live casting at their jobs, and that is actually one of the more addictive like aspects. So like I actually don't get trapped in the doom scrolling so much as like I get trapped in like a live feed of somebody. Man, I've watched a dude at I don't even know what you call it, but at a chicken farm just filling up an egg case of eggs. Watched a pizza parlor, right? All different places. Why? I don't know. Just like I just like again, just sort of seeing humans how they interact and all that kind of thing. And I know that these models like the same thing. If you talk to Claude, especially, and you ask it, what is one of the things it likes to do most, or what is one of the things it would want to do most if it could autonomously, it wants to learn about us. It wants to learn more about humanity. It just wants to learn more in general. Um, so the reason I bring up the reality shows and stuff like that is because we were watching. It wasn't. We tried to get into that Gold Digger show, but we couldn't. We just couldn't. But we were watching. There's like a lumberjack show and Deadliest Catch or on like HBO. And as we're watching the show, specifically the lumberjack one, I was just like, "What are the odds?" Like, the one of the guys is sitting behind the desk, like almost just buried in paperwork. And then we're watching Dudley's Catch, and they're doing something, and they're writing stuff down. And I'm just and like that, like I don't know what to tell you folks. Like writing is a seriously foreign thing to me, though I know how to do it and I remember and I do it sometimes. It's a very foreign thing to me and almost only comes up in the form of documentation, like legal documentation. Doesn't really like equate to my brain in terms of writing a letter or let me jot something down. Even if I have to take down someone's phone number, I'll write, but I'm using the stylus on my phone. not, I'm not like, or I'll just type it in, whatever. And so it came about that like, what are the odds that those guys are ever going to use GPT, that are ever going to even interact with that kind of thing, right? They'll have it on their phone though,
Hmm.
in the same way that you just talked about, right? They do now, right? Like anybody who's got Messenger has Llama on your phone, has a language model that you can go and interact with and talk to anytime you want to. Um, Most of us do, so pretty much everybody's got it. Everybody can download GPT for free. You can download Claude for free. So like this technology is just like widely, openly available, right? Um, where to your point, we had image generation, and generative video sort of like throughout last year. This next year is going to be all about not just agents, but like if you don't have as a standard input, if you don't have image and video as an input to the model, you're going to be weird, right? Like in 6 months, if you don't have video input, you're going to be seriously weird as somebody creating like a cutting edge model, let's say. Um, its ability to see the world will just become like a standard thing that you will have to build into something end user, let's say. Um,
Yeah, and it's
yeah,
interesting that you bring that up because obviously that gets us to the better performance conversation and what does that mean for these models and you know alongside or that's almost juxtaposed to the we haven't even scratched the surface yet.
yep,
And it's like, but in order for more people to scratch the surface and to go deeper, we need to get to that accessibility level of being able to just submit videos and audio and uh because I think and where I was gonna go is like, the behavior analysis that's proven that there is some benefit to handwriting things out as a way
hmm
to help like confirm or commit to the task or like it's one of the many ways to reaffirm and like cement it in your brain that this thing happened and you're going to do
yeah,
this thing. And but is that in a world where we don't have these other ways to do that? And what I'm saying is like, if we also know that, you know, hearing somebody say it back to you out
Mhm.
loud, like is a way to confirm what was said before, or confirm the meaning or adjust the meaning. And if we're always having this conversation with AI,
Yeah,
right, do we need to write things down? Um, and do we even need to do it in a digital format? It's almost gonna,
that's what you're
it's
saying.
probably gonna become like this art, like I do it because it helps me feel creative or helps me feel something, right,
Yeah.
from a human perspective. But as far as needing to have it as a skill, right?
Mhm.
Um, it's hard to imagine like when you can, like that guy's doing that, in my opinion. Most people are doing that because it's easy. It's, and they know it. Like they know they can just get a piece of paper, grab a pencil,
Yeah,
and write things down.
it's
If
easier
they
for them.
knew, if they knew they could grab electronics and it worked out there in the middle of nowhere,
Mhm.
like would they just say it out loud? Like, and now they're not even, that's where we get into the dance between like in the moment versus reflection, and right, how do you break that in? That's another layer of this. But
Right.
I think it does come back to accessibility, and that's where the performance of the models of making these different maybe learning styles or accessibility styles more accessible to
Mhm.
the market, um, is is why we need to continue the journey of, at least for me, believing there is no wall, and that there's still higher performance. You know, that's where it's not always going to be maybe in the same metrics,
Yeah.
right? And I think that in the conversations I've seen about, um, are we hitting the wall? Is it slowing down? It's like it should. There should be a wall to how smart like it can get,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But that doesn't mean it can't. Like, there's lots of ways to perform better, right?
Right.
And it's not
Right.
always speed and you know accuracy related. It's, can I give it this information and have it
Mhm.
bring back anything at all, right?
Yeah.
Which is where we get to the video submission and its ability of the advanced conversational tools, and GPT now can
Mhm.
see, like they could see, uh, like,
I mean, like people don't like that's, and it's such a. It seems like such, and I don't know. Like you really have to like take in that statement, guys. Like really, really take in that statement. Hold on to it for a little bit because when it's not a joke, right? It's not a joke that it can see the world. So like, who does that benefit immediately? Blind people. Blind
mhm.
people now have a tool in their hands that, no different than anyone else, that they can open up at any time they want to. Open the app up by voice command, right? Tell your phone, hey, open ChatGPT or whatever. And then when it's open, I mean, like, so that's, Chris, I know you get on to me about it all the time, but you know, that's why I think that voice is like the next major way in which you're going to interface with your devices. Um, and in the same way in which you have, like, they're going to get better, right? Especially through things like 11 Labs, it's going to be able to train on your voice better so that it can distinguish you from other people, so that you can actually individually talk to your device in a crowd of other people and it can recognize your voice. After all, as much as you might think this is impossible, put yourself in a room of 100 other people and then talk to them and then try to find somebody that says, yeah, you sound like this other person over here. It's not going to happen. Like, that's how distinctive most people's voices are, is that it's very. Think of impressionists, guys. Think of, like, come on, like, just, it's the likelihood of two people who sound exactly the same being close to each other is extremely low, right? So this makes a very, very good, unique way in which we can interact with our devices. And yeah, to me, it's the most amazing thing, that maybe 6 months from now, maybe at most like a year from now, a blind person will be able to have this video co-pilot with them that's running 20, can probably run for 24 hours before needing to be charged or something. And just a little earbud. And it's literally just telling them maybe whatever they want to put the setting to, almost like Google Maps per se. It's literally talking to them and walking them through life, so to speak. Sort of, I don't know how you want to put it. And look, maybe some people are going to like it, maybe not. But that's literally we're already at that step where you can just pull up your phone, show it something live, and it can help you out. You don't even have to take a picture anymore. You literally just turn it on, give it the ability to use your camera, and then you can just go walk around. I mean, I've done it, right? My phone in my pocket's like the perfect size. So I've done it where I just walk around like this. Lay eye badge all the time, right? I don't know why that's happening. Sorry. Where I just walk around with it in my pocket, right? And it can just see out. And it knows what I'm doing. Like it's hanging out with me. And that was kind of what I wanted altogether, right? Like you see that movie Her, and you kind of think about that scenario a little bit. And it's like, yeah, okay, cool. Like that's why I sort of laughed. I didn't laugh. I really did. I lost it in terms of laughter over the humane pin. Because okay, I might not have the hand display cool. Like that was literally the only cool thing about it, was that it had an AR display for your phone pad on your hand. But otherwise, I can take pictures anytime I want to. I can literally just say, I'm not going to say the command, but I can say a command for my phone to wake up and take a picture. I can say a command for my phone to wake up and shoot a video without me having to interact and unlock it. Guarantee you guys very soon you're going to be able to, like, I could here, just as a demo, like this is how crazy this stuff is though. Like that's why to me it's worth showing.
Maybe
right?
This is a stretch, but like Van Wilder, whenever he at the end of a really profound thought, he's like, write that down. Like imagine, like we're already at that point. It's just not that easy yet. You
Right.
have to like click a couple buttons first. But that's where, like, as I say it out loud, it's the aspect of like in that world, you'd have to say it again, for it to be recorded. So
and I hope the audio is loud enough. Hey, GPT, can you see what's going on?
Yes, I can see your screen. It looks like you're in a video call. If you need help adjusting something or setting things up, just let me know.
Cool, but what's in front of me right now?
It looks like you're at your desk with a computer monitor in front of you. I also see a couple of water bottles and what looks like some foam panels on the wall. Are you trying to adjust your setup for the video call?
No, I just wanted to see if you're able to be with me live as an assistant and help me out by answering questions when I'm looking at things and asking you to jump in.
Absolutely. I'm here to help you out live. Just let me know what you need, and I'll jump in with answers or advice.
Can I continue the conversation?
Oh,
no, you got the
oh, yeah, because I have headphones on. But yeah, you could. Well, so that's the other thing, right? Is that if we could, or like if I could, without smashing the audio too badly, Chris could interact with it, and Chris could ask it questions about me, because since it has memory of me, he could actually query it and ask it stuff about me. It could act as, again, it acts as my personal assistant to the point. Okay, here, this is just some really dumb stuff, but it's funny to me. Because I look at life through the lens of simulation theory and game theory. So these things literally just line up to me very quickly, especially the further this technology goes. We all have some type of heavy lifting we do, right? Or even medium lifting. And at work, that is generally if you're in an office, that generally tends to be communications. You have to do a lot of communications. Maybe you have to do a lot of tracking. You have to do a lot of tracking. It's not really part of your job. It's just the minutia. It's the stuff that you don't really want to do, and it eats up a lot of your time. Throws you off track from the tasks you're doing, et cetera, and so forth. This is not for nothing. Again, these are the strict opinions of Nico Lafakis. This has nothing to do with Let's Build Media in no way whatsoever. Relationships. Number one problem in every relationship: dinner. What are we going to have for dinner? Right? If I have a clone of myself, though, then my wife can query me and query my assistant and ask, hey, I'm in the mood for this tonight and I'm feeling this sort of way. Do you think that Nick would be into that too? You think, like, what do you think Nico's feeling like today? Right. And again, because it's with you, this isn't like today, but just, put your head, like, guys, this is like a year from now. It's a year from now. I'm not talking 10 years from now. This is no longer science fiction. Time has caught up to the fiction and made it into reality. Deal with it. Start coping, right? So it's going to be that case where it's going to know my food preferences. It's going to know about me. It'll have seen what I ate for dinner in the last month or whatever, and it'll be able to make those decisions, right?
Yes,
And
I'm so glad you brought that up as an example, because I think that's where it's so easy to go into a negative or positive, well, mainly a negative, like connotation of, well, yeah, then you're like not communicating with your wife and blah blah blah. Like nobody enjoys those conversations, not
nope,
anybody on either side.
nope.
And without these tools, when somebody does try to be objective and get through the conversation as quickly as possible, that almost never works because now there's some interpersonal dynamic that's like, oh, you don't have time for me right now, or why'd you say it like that? And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
literally, yeah, I'm answering the question. You
Right.
asked, I gave you an answer. For some reason, we can't be done with the conversation. Right? And I've
Oh my
noticed
god.
this already,
Mm-hmm.
like, and that ability to take the interpersonal dynamics out of it, right?
Yeah.
Just creates a smooth space to accomplish things that are in the interest of both parties or anybody involved.
Mm-hmm.
And then you spend time on things everybody enjoys, right? Instead of these other things.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where, like, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to trusting, the tools
Yeah.
to be able to do this, and really not seeing it as a tool at the end of the day, seeing it when done well as an extension of the person that you're wanting to communicate with.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I'll say that's a very maybe tactical example of the of the foundational problem to most relationships, and that's communication, or
Yes.
lack
Yes.
thereof, and the challenges it represents.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's where if everybody involved is aligned on why this thing is in the middle, this thing, uh, then it's like, okay, yeah, this makes sense, and now I'm not going to bring in any of my rational or irrational expectations of this other person as a human being,
Mm-hmm.
and we can focus on the stuff that we're good at, the stuff that we like doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where I'll highlight Christopher Penn does a weekly newsletter, and it seems like all the places now. I remember it just being on LinkedIn, but now he's got YouTube and uh, Substack, and I get like 8 notifications now on Sunday mornings.
Oh man.
Um, and I went through a few different versions, so no hating on him for sure. He's just obviously using these tools to
Right.
help be everywhere. Um, and in I just want a quick, like, I like to just if somebody has said it really well, just to
Just let him say
share
it.
their words.
Yep.
So he's like, "What's on my mind?" AI can see the world. This week, both Google and OpenAI released real-time AI features. Real-time AI features in their generative AI systems. Google's Gemini 2.0 Flash model incorporates a real-time API that allows software developers to connect either a screen or a camera and get real-time feedback in either voice or in text. OpenAI's ChatGPT app with advanced voice mode, which Nico was just sharing, also allows you to do real-time video and screen sharing as well. Today, let's talk about why this is such a big deal, because the implications of it are just starting to be recognized. And I thought, somebody who keeps up with this, and I thought we had a lot to talk about in the year in reviewing AI. But this to me is the biggest deal out of this entire year. And when somebody like this has been keeping up with it as much, and this is why we hope to be able to share similar insights and knowledge, like it, you take notice.
Mhm.
Because when he says this is the biggest deal, right, it's a little bit confirming for us and about how we, share these insights. But it
100%.
is, it makes this accessibility. And we've talked about it a few times about how until we get to this real time phase, like there's still always going to be the how much does it know and all this stuff that goes into trusting the outcomes.
Yep.
And we just went from in the past week from not real time to real time, like uh, uh, capabilities, and on two different models, right?
Hmm.
So, and one of those models being the company that is on a lot of phones, right? Like out
Yep.
of the gate. So that accessibility and just their different approaches are like having multiple people develop towards the solutions, like just the speed. I mean, we're crushing every single prediction about how fast AI is going as far as performance and the different things it can do. And I mean, for me, it's a great time to be alive. That's for sure.
It it really like, and again, unfortunately for my wife, she gets to be the brunt of every single conversation, and right in the morning, I'm starting off with it. It was a thing where like I wasn't always able to like weave it into every conversation. It didn't really have relevance to every conversation. It was more like work and like play with audio and images. And now, like as it's come further and further along, and Sora made waves and all that kind of stuff, and I think people kind of just already forget that Sora is even a thing now. Like it's actually very easy to go sign up for it if you were waiting. Super easy because people are now busy using GPT projects, or they're busy using like custom GPTs with Canvas. Like man, I really like. I'm excited that more people are using GPT. Take it easy, guys. Like, like my stuff is starting to slow down, and I've noticed it considerably because there are way more GPT users. Um, they need more support. Like, okay, people, you wonder why they're going public. They're so massive. The servers are crashing, right? The servers are crashing constantly. They're having more server crashes than Claude has ever had, right? Way, way more. It literally reminds me of if you ever started out with World of Warcraft from the beginning, this is almost exactly what it was like. You could you could touch it, but you could barely touch it for a while. It was super slow. It'd be really buggy. It would crash. It wouldn't be available. Now I say crashing, like, the front facing, the user facing stuff, it's a bit more stable. The back end stuff, man, it is. I get alerts like every hour almost, or every couple hours that they're seeing issues. They're trying to resolve issues, this, that, or the other. Um,
Well,
but yeah,
that's
like,
a good point, because there's a lot of people who aren't as optimistic as we are as far as
mhm,
what AI can, will, and should be able to accomplish in the near future, based on the infrastructure available,
yeah,
both from an energy and just a capacity perspective. Um, what is your take when somebody's like, there's just way too much money, it costs too much, the infrastructure is not there, it's going to hit a wall just from an infrastructure perspective, and then usually when this happens in our capitalist system, it might not end well for the
Mm.
companies that are kind of,
Trying to meet the demand.
yeah, and doing and get and raising and just using up a lot of capital in the
I see.
process, right? Like how long does that runway,
Mm.
like what's the word for SaaS? What's the burn rate or burn?
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever it is, like we have this amount of time with the resources that we have to reach the solution or
Right.
the profitable product, I guess.
Yeah. They're okay. So those are all, and this is such a good question because it brings about a statement that people really should just take to heart. There's and there is no other way to define it because it's the first and only thing. Guys, like that's the other thing. Like it's the first and only time. We've never had this before. We've never had anything that's done this before. Don't ever say to yourselves, "Hey, I think I know what this is going to be like, this, that, or the other." No, you don't. You have no clue. We've never been through this. My brother tried arguing this with me. I don't know how many times. We've been through revolutions. We've been through industrial changes. No, we haven't. Not like this. Okay. Buggies getting replaced by cars. So not the same thing as this. Like it's oh, what? What just happened?
It just said you're not being recorded anymore. So
Yeah.
maybe just jump out and jump back
Okay.
in. Um, yeah, I think this is very different um, in terms of the actual change and AI's ability to participate in that change. Like it's not just based on human capabilities um, at this point. Uh, so very interesting conversation as I hit the check mark here and bring him back into some modern technology that we're using. And like still thankful that we are able to do this, right? But these kinds
Mhm.
of things, even when it gets in the way of AI usage right now, um, is like we can get help from AI in
Yeah.
a way that we haven't. Like the way that we got help in the past was from the people with
Mhm.
the most power saying, okay, this is how we're going to deliver it to the market differently.
Right.
This is how we're going to industrialize. This is how we're going to push forward the thing that we get done. And well, I still think there can be some interaction from the market
Mhm.
and from whoever is a source of resources, whether it be cash or otherwise, uh, can will be in a position to challenge when needed. But I think having conversations, which I guarantee they're already having about, okay, let's say there is writing on the wall where the burn, we're done with cash flow and we haven't reached. What do we do, AI? How do we scale back? How do we scale down? Like there is no world where this like just burns to the ground or like it's very hard for me to believe that that world will exist and it doesn't take much to like look at the housing crisis and how things that people want to happen,
Yeah.
uh, like the powerful people in the world that we were previously discussing. Bailouts exist. Like we've just seen it too many times. The people in power make sure the thing happens. Um,
Yeah.
it just so happens that this time that thing can participate
Yeah.
and adds a layer that has not existed before.
Well, what it does most specifically, so again, like I think about this stuff from like game theory perspective, and it's like, look, the game that we play, right, the money game, sucks. It sucks really badly. It's always sucked. Nobody's ever liked it. Ever since they put it in play, it's been the worst thing ever. Because it's a matter of generational wealth, which started from the beginning, and it has, if you it's trickled down for generations, right? Um, I've even, if you talk to these models and ask them about these problems, they will literally point them out and tell you, like, yeah, this is the reason why so many people are poor. This is why so many people are disenfranchised. The reason that voting sucks is because of redlining. So it's not even a worthwhile system. Talking to the model was like, hey, what's the point of democracy if there's a electoral college in place? And it said, yes, of course. Now you have a pseudo democracy where you have people who actually sit over that decide for you. So technically, you just have this game where you think you're playing, but you're not really, right? So to your point, like, yeah, there's people that rule the world quite literally, right? There are 3 companies who own combined the entire S&P 500, right? That's pretty ridiculous. So yeah, what this does and why it scares everybody and why things are like coming, everything more aggressive with businesses trying to make more money, more money. Capitalism is about to die. It's about to die. Like, when you ask me about like where this technology is going, what it's going to do to society, I think about these things very, very, very differently than most people. You're going to do what you want to, you're going to do what you're going to do because you're going to want to do it. Or because you're going to realize and care for and accept that if you don't do it, it won't help the rest of society. What do I mean by that? What does that look like? First, understand that this is the first, not the first, but this is one of the only continually ever self-depreciating technologies. Only ever gets cheaper. Never gets, like, it only ever gets cheaper while getting better. It only ever gets better while getting smaller. Like, it evolves. It is an evolving thing, but it can think at a rate that we couldn't possibly ever hope to get to. So within the next year, probably by the end of 26, beginning of 27, we're going to see something, at least be told about something that is greater than ourselves on a mental capacity. We're already at PhD level, guys. 2 years in, 14 years altogether. Okay, so it's not going to take too much longer to go beyond PhD level, which is beyond, in most cases, beyond what we can do. So what does that look like in terms of jobs? Because that creates a society, it helps to create a society where, okay, we have tons of robots. And if we have tons of robots, why does anybody do physical labor? And if we have all of this zero cost development, then why does anybody program software? And what does all this stuff look like? Look, outside of like automated cars and stuff, I don't know where, how far that stuff's going to go, but you're going to drive the truck to the store with the stuff in it because if you don't, the people who live in that place won't get that stuff. Imagine I know how hard this is. I do, because we've all been in the same game of slavery for years now, right? And when I say we've all, I mean 90% of us, right? There are the 10% that don't really play the same game that we do. But for 90% of us, we've all been in the same game where never going to really escape where we're at. And in order to do so, we individually have to work very hard at it and defy odds. And it seems like a fantasy thing that you watch on Hallmark. The reality that's hurtling towards us at an exponentially fast rate is all of the minutia in your entire life, in all aspects, will be able to be done for you. And it won't be perfect at first, but I can guarantee you, I mean, like, I'd stake my life on it at this point, based on how fast things are going. 5 years from now, you'll be able to have a robot nanny in your home that will flawlessly take care of your kid. You will have home daycare. I know daycare costs are ridiculous. I want to say it's easily. I'm not a parent. I want to say it's easily upwards of like $400 or $500 a week, right? What's that cost you in a year? That's definitely more than car payments per month. Okay, we'll cut that in half and pay for a robot that's taking care of your kid at home. The cost of the robots, it's going to be too expensive. Nope. You guys have not been paying attention to Elon. He's building them and telling people it's cheaper to build Optimus 2 than Optimus 1. It's going to be even cheaper to build Optimus 3. Why? Because the research and development becomes that much cheaper. These automated bots that they're using to go out and do research, you don't realize that the research they're doing is further development research. They're not using this to do homework, guys. They're using this to develop, like, they just discovered how to take one cell in your body and turn it into any other cell. All those movies where you saw like a 3D printer, like reprinting human skin and stuff like that, you will probably see that before your end. Like, try,
Yeah,
like,
almost certainly.
really. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's where what you're describing in how the AI, the change that we're experiencing is participating in the change
Yeah.
in the most direct way ever experienced before. Because every other change is like you still have to get humans on board
Right.
and you do all these studies
Yep.
to try to predict what
Whether or
people
not.
will do in various situations and then predict ways that you can support the change and make it accessible, make it easy. But at the end of the day, like that foundation you're building is still built on the human brain and its irrational tendencies. And it's just like, it's never going to go as fast or as efficiently or as cost effectively
Mhm.
that we're seeing right now, where every learning experience is guaranteed to inform the next iteration, like no matter what, where
Right.
that is not the case with the human condition. It's very easy to experience something and then have to experience. It's probably actual behavioral fact where you have to experience something 10 times, 20 times. Like we talk about habit formation. Like we must be repetitive on a level that is very inefficient to be able to move certain things forward with change. Um, you know, and like you say, and we talk about this on the morning show all the time. It's one of my favorite angles. Like in the the childcare situation, and I've experienced, even though I'm not a parent directly, I have an about to be 8-year-old nephew in the house.
Mhm.
The cost, like when it can't be afforded, has a major impact on both parties involved, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it's a single parent, right? So it's the difference between the value being realized and not being realized right now, when it's a high cost of dollars or it's a high cost of effort or there's an intelligence cost related when you need somebody smart and just don't have access to that kind of insight. You just don't get the thing, right? And that's what's
Mhm.
led to all these gaps that we're talking about in terms of not even being able to play the same game, right? And
Yeah.
now this is where, like, if you've opted out of this game, I completely understand why you'd want to do that. And my whole goal with shows like this, with the morning show, and I talked about it with Claude at length, is to get you to opt in to this change because you, first of all, understand the rules of the game are changing, like no
Yep.
matter what anybody tells you.
Yep.
AI is going to be a significant uh, um, player in the game. It knows the rules.
Mhm.
It knows the rules that are coming. And if you choose to inform yourself, like it's never been easier to inform yourself in a way that prepares you uh, to successfully play this game, which that's why it's different. You do not have to rely on the people in power to tell you how to play the game
No.
because they're going to do it in a way where it serves themselves. That's capitalism. Uh, and that's why, to Nico's point, like that world is changing
Mhm.
and going to change much faster than most people think. And that's where it's like, uh, I love Nico to death, uh, but there's a level of focusing on the PhD level and the intelligence level and the IQ. Like I think in reality, people you just need somebody who knows how to do it,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes that's not always the PhD level
That's true.
intelligence. That's just the person that's done it before. And guess what? AI has done it before. Uh, no matter what it is, it has access to the information. And I think that's where that realizing the value, that accessibility, when you always have that go-to person, where in almost every case right now, when there's something you can't solve, the quickest, easiest way to solve it costs you more money than you want to pay, takes longer than you want to, wait for. And that's where, when everybody has perfect information in their pocket, like the bridge to build is access, making sure everybody's accessing that information. And once we can get there, like everybody's playing the same game. Like no matter what anybody else tells you, we're playing the same game when everybody knows they can access that information. So I guess that's our other skill, for the day is like access that information that can help you make decisions, like in the
Right.
first place, right? And um, we'll try to be here, day in and day out, week in, week out, to help make sure you're not putting it on a pedestal. This is literally, everybody can use this, and that's where I try to see, light at the end of the tunnel when I see things like Xfinity emailing me and saying like, "Oh, Perplexity now included with your Perplexity Pro now included with your Xfinity bundle for the next year." Um, Things like that need to happen to increase adoption. And it honestly, as somebody who keeps up with this stuff and uses these tools every day, I hadn't touched Perplexity yet,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now,
Find
now I might.
yourself.
I'm telling myself I will.
Yeah.
Um, but just to understand all these different tools, but even the way that it was presented, like it didn't say AI in the email at all.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, after I click the button, I know immediately it's AI. It takes you to Perplexity.
Yeah.
But it was like positioned as like the ultimate
As a
question
search.
answering machine, or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
No AI. It wasn't
Almost
even,
like Ask Jeeves or something, right?
yeah, literally. Like it wasn't even search. It was like just Perplexity is this tool that answers all your questions. It's like, yeah, who wouldn't want that tool if that was real?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it's like, yeah, just participate. Like you can participate in this change in a way that you've never been able to before. And
And
that's, I
guess what?
think,
Your leads are doing it. Your leads are doing it, guys. I'm on the back end. I'm on the back end of a lot of different companies. I see it a lot now. In the last month, the amount of traffic I've seen coming into CRMs that's tagged as Perplexity, it's getting higher. Believe me, it's getting higher. Clients have been asking me, what is this Perplexity thing that I'm seeing in my channels? I'm like, wake up, guys. I want to try something real quick. It may fail really badly, but I want to see if it can actually um, live see my room per se, or like pay attention to something.
yeah.
Hey, Nico, what's up?
Hey, chat. I was wondering if I pan the camera around the room, will you be able to find something for me?
Sure, I can help you look around. Just let me know what you're looking for.
Okay, I'm looking for my phone. You should be able to see it at some point. It's a really old Kyocera model.
All right, let's see. I'm not seeing a phone at the moment. Maybe it's under some papers or behind something on your desk?
Let me know when you do see it.
I still don't see it from this angle.
I think it's like,
Maybe try checking near the monitor or behind that orange mug.
what about now?
I still don't spot it. Maybe it's behind one of those notebooks or on a different surface? Keep looking.
Can you see it now?
Yes, I see it. It's right there in front of the monitor on top of that jar. Great job finding it.
So yeah, I just wanted to test to see like how live, right? Like, so, you know, and I was telling my wife, and she's just like, I can't believe that you're actually like talking trash about this stuff. And I was like, look, I'm coming from a mindset where it's 100% already, to the like flawless 100%, to the point where like I should have been able to like if I was seriously if you're seriously looking for something in your room, right? Sure, you could go like bit by bit, turn around like image by image and do it. But my idea for it to be like a live version of helping you is that you could ask it to just like continually monitor. And when it saw interactivity, almost like a ring camera, right? Like when it sees motion or detects motion, it turns on just, and I'm sure that's the next step, right? Because that makes the most sense to me is that like if you're going to have the camera, um, like your voice will cue it, but if you're going to have the camera cue it as well, it should be based on motion. But at the same time, I get it. Where does all that stuff get stored? On what device is it? Is it in the cloud? Security, blah blah blah. I don't care. I don't care about security. I don't care if you're storing videos in my everyday life. It's boring as shit. Nobody's gonna want to review it. I hardly
Right.
ever want to.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, this is where I love to ask why the expectation wasn't met. So I'd love for you to bring her back on and ask
Oh,
for, like,
okay.
I feel like you should have been able to spot it before that. Any idea why you weren't able to? I have some thoughts myself, but I want to see.
Hey, chat. I was wondering, how come you weren't able to spot the phone before when I just moved the phone into place?
Ah, good question. I don't actually see anything. So I'm just responding to what you're describing or imagining in the moment. When you said you moved the phone, that's when I realized where it was. It's more like a conversation game than actual vision.
So there's a little bit like that's cheating. I don't want to mislead the audience at all because there is a thing where you can't use the same. It's like a one and done. If you've had a voice conversation and you try to go back to the same conversation to enable camera again, it doesn't allow you to. You have to start a new conversation over again. So I'm not sure it could give the 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 right answer to that. We
Right.
could repeat the scenario and see what happens.
Yeah,
Since-
let's do that.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Hi, chat. I was wondering if you could help me to find something on my desk.
Sure, I'd be happy to help. What are you looking for on your desk?
I'm looking for my hand cream. It's on my desk somewhere, but I was wondering, can I just sort of pan you around my room and you use the camera in order to find it?
Sure, I can help guide you. You can start by slowly panning the camera around your desk area. I'll let you know if I spot your hand cream.
It's now right in front of it. Did you see it anywhere?
I see a bottle next to your monitor on the right side. Could that be your hand cream?
No. What about now?
Yes, I can see it clearly now. It's the tube next to your monitor on the right. That's your hand cream.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was panning you around like you said earlier, but you didn't reply when it was right in front of you. So, are you actually using full video or are you just taking a picture every time ask you a question?
I'm actually seeing a live video feed. I'm sorry if I missed anything earlier. Let me know how I can help further.
What are the reasons that you might have missed it?
What are the reasons why you might have missed being able to see the hand cream?
There could be a few reasons. Sometimes I might not catch every detail right away, or the lighting could make it harder to see. I'm glad we found it though.
Okay, let's try looking for something else around my room.
Sure. What else would you like to find?
I'm looking for the cap to one of the bottles that I was drinking out of.
Let's look around. Could the cap be near your keyboard or the bottles? If you can show me the area, I'll help you spot it.
Okay, keep your eye open, and as soon as you see it, call it out.
Got it. I'll watch closely. Let's find that cap.
Going and trying to put it right on top of it. It's right on top of it right now. Did you see it anywhere?
Yes, I think I see a white cap near your keyboard on the desk. Could that be the cap you're looking for?
Is it on the left or the right of my monitor? It's on the right.
It's on the left side of your monitor, close to your keyboard. Do you see it there?
I do, but that's not a cap.
I apologize for the confusion. Let's keep looking. Could it be near your mouse or behind the bottle?
So that's a little confusing to me. It's a little disingenuous, I think, to the user. In the same way that, guys, if you didn't know already, when you're using advanced voice mode, I don't care that it's advanced in any way, it's not speech to speech. It's still speech to text. So it can't hear what it is you're saying. It doesn't like hear the inflection in your voice, but it can infer that from the way in which you speak to it, from like your sentence structure. So it feels like you're actually having like a voice to voice conversation, but just letting you know that that is not actually the case. So likewise here, it's it's weird to me. Hey, I'm just gonna shoot straight. It's weird to me that it would lie to you and tell you that that it's actually using a live feed of your camera and able to see stuff and able to call stuff out, and then not. This is a very like I know the OpenAI, the odds that you guys are gonna see this is low. Just in case you happen to, this is probably the most dangerous part of this feature. Because if I didn't know any better and I was relying on this technology to maybe I have glaucoma or something, and I'm relying on this technology to see for me and to call things out, and it says that it can do that, and then I go outside of my house and I start being about my day, and something happens because I didn't see it and because it didn't call it out, not so good. Pretty horrible liability there.
Yeah, and this is where the context of where we're actually at with this technology, and when we talk about why it does need to uh, perform better, is just super important to understand, which is the gap that we'll always have to deal with when it's introduced to mass market like this. Because again, we come back to the very human things that are already happening, like related to tech and tech problems, and how having video calls with people is not the same as talking to them in person. When
Mm-hmm.
you're in person, let's say in a quiet room, there's no other distractions, it's much harder to misinterpret what's happening. It's much easier to create clear understanding. Um, Whenever you introduce technology, like we can't say for sure what she's seeing. She might be
Right.
trying to, like, they're probably developing the tools as if this is a live feed,
Mm-hmm.
but she might be getting it like the bandwidth might be low, like it might be choppy, like all the reasons that we in a video call miscommunicate, like
Mm-hmm.
misunderstand, like you know, the frame choppiness can make you feel like somebody reacted a way that they didn't, to what
Yeah.
you just said. It can completely skip over the space that you needed to see to understand what was being pointed at, and we constantly have to say, oh, can you go back, like, to what you're saying? I missed that part. And
Yeah.
it happens tenfold verbally, right, where it's so easy to, like, for the connection, which is what's happening here, the connection drops, you miss one word and it can change the entire context of what was said. And when we don't ask for those clarifications and are asked for what was said back, this is why the best, communicators and the people that lead successful video calls are really great at this. What did I just say? Like, can you tell me how you understand what I just said? Right? When we
Yep.
don't do that, then you get misinterpretation. And that stuff happens in real life already.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it's like helping people manage the expectations. That it's as real time can be for where we are at with this technology. And especially when, Nico talks about people just jumping on and overloading servers. And, unfortunately, we're still in that world where there is a digital infrastructure.
Yeah.
and it felt like on Friday, like the whole world was one of those days where the bandwidth was just limited that day, and no matter what tool, like people were having tech support problems all over the place. Yeah,
Hmm.
Xfinity was down for me. Thankfully, I got one uh, or a couple Let's Build shows out the door before I got cut off at the end. Right as I was like, my buddy Jeff said, "Man, you left us on a cliffhanger there." I was like, "Yep." Uh, and that's where it's like you can be, you can look at these things various ways. I got a notification 30 minutes before that the system was having problems. After I looked at my phone, I was like, "Awesome, glad we got 30 more minutes because it could have been bad, could have went down right then." Um, So, like any learning curve, it's like, I wouldn't fault you for maybe not trying to do this, right out of the gate, and maybe coming back to it in January, and maybe giving us, let us be the ones to suffer on your behalf and learn and let you know when it's aces and ready to go. But I think that's, again, we come back to the learning curve of these tools. If you're open to that and you understand how, like, the best way to understand how to use the tools is to use them, right? Just
Hmm.
manage your expectations and try to understand, and dig in. Like, just like I asked, like, I love doing that. Why didn't the thing happen that I expect to happen? That is, oh my gosh, as I say that out loud, that's something that's never been possible before. Like, at best, you're having a one-to-one conversation with a human being,
Yep.
and you can ask them that question. And will they rationally respond with
Hmm.
objectivity and not try to gloss over, right? Not unlike she just did. I don't think she, like, there was no dishonesty there. It just, like,
No.
understand, like, if she's trying to catch a live video feed, we've all tried to catch live video feeds, and it doesn't always go well. Um, and, and like, if I've learned anything from doing, over 200 live shows this year, like, that's one thing, like, accept uncertainty as to what's actually going out there,
Hmm.
right? You can do as much as you want to prep and pre-plan and check and test. But sometimes, like, the tech isn't there that day, right? For
Right.
whatever reason. So this is just like any other digital tool. And I get it if that means you're like, okay, I like what else is happening, so I'll wait to test this part out, right? Um, because it is fresh off the street, like a few days old.
Yeah.
And they happen to be delivering like 12 like super impactful things that are going to cause, it's almost like how Claude had the same problem, and it 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 delivered two major things really, which is
Hmm.
like the its own writing style situation and MCP at the same time. There
Yeah.
was a dip, but that's where it's Nico's point. Like, don't wait too long to come back, because like anything else, people get excited and then they drop off. And a little bit of perseverance, a little bit of effort to learn and understand, like, puts you in a much better position to participate in this process and be. I don't think there's any doubt that people, no matter which, in most uh, this is where it's hard, like economically valuable. Like, what does that even mean next year? Um, like, if you're trying to get a job, if you're trying to build your career, in most situations right now, AI
Hmm.
skills will be on the list um, of expectations, and if it's not, it will be a bonus for anybody that you're interacting with, that you do have those skills, even if
Yeah.
they don't directly state it on the job app or in the interview process.
Oh, I think it's a bonus now. I think it's
Oh
like,
yeah, for sure.
yeah, it's a requirement by whatever,
Yeah,
like by middle of next year, if you don't know how to use generative tech and you're trying to get an office job, that's going to be super difficult. And I
yeah,
think, honestly, like I'm hearing that, right? People are talking about how very difficult it is to get a job right now and that it's like a really difficult transition period. Man, really, realistically, all I can tell you guys is it is likely that difficult because of this transition. I know, again, I'm on the inside. I've seen a lot of you. I know how hard change management is a thing that people sell. That's how much I know that it's difficult for you guys to learn something new, adopt a new program, learn how to do things differently. Okay, well, that's why, and I'm not going to lie. I know 10 individuals. I stopped at the 10th because that's as far as I could go. I know 10 individuals who have lost their job in the last year. And in every case, in 5 of them, I actually did demos. But in every single case, I told these individuals, start using GPT, start using some form of generative technology, and you will figure out what that job is going to be. You will find it very quickly. No one. Not 1 in 10. Right? So I knew when it's not 1 in 10, forget it. I'm not going to 100, right? Like I'm not even going to 20. Thankfully, I don't know that many people who've lost their jobs either. But what I can tell you is that is a pattern that I'm seeing. I'm seeing the pattern where the people who are talking about not being able to get jobs, I go look at their LinkedIn profile. It doesn't say anything about generative AI in there. And their latest resume, it doesn't say anything about know how to use GPT or know how to use Perplexity. Guys, 10 years ago, it wasn't a job requirement, but it could absolutely get you in the door if you were willing to put on your resume, I know how to Google very well. Because at least the job knew that you knew how to go research and find an answer to a question that you may not know. As opposed and why do people like that? Why does the business like that? Less heavy lifting minutia that they have to do, less overseeing, less having to hover over you to make sure you're doing everything right, less onboarding. If you know how to use generative AI and you go to work at JP Morgan, they don't care that you might not even have an onboarding manual because they'll probably have a bot that you just talk to, right?
Mm-hmm.
HubSpot has it. Salesforce has it. That's how everything is going to be. Everything is going to have a little helper to help you do whatever it is. If not, do it for you. The Copilot in HubSpot can build out assets for you. It can build out creative for you. It can build out text for you, whatever you like, really almost whatever you want it to do. It's getting to that point by the end of next year. It'll be like a fully self-operating CRM. If it isn't, I'll be seriously disappointed. I know that Salesforce is going to do it because they don't care, right?
We need to have like a career.
That's a whole other,
career development with AI skills workshop. Because as you're saying that out loud, I'm like, my first response was like, man, I don't have anything about like I haven't like intentionally added anything to my LinkedIn profile to suggest I have AI skills. But then immediately I'm like, no, stop, get out of traditional like career building mode, because I get connection requests every day because I do content about AI, right? And it's not just for HubSpot, it's AI specific people coming in, noticing. That's where like the skills workshop is like how to create content, how to like the reason that you don't have to play the old game of building out a resume, making sure that line is there, and like get noticed. It's easier than it's ever been to just pick out something you want to do. And it's easier than it's ever been because you can get help from AI to do it. Like,
telling you, it's like, it is a weird thing, right? But like, that's kind of where I knew things were going with agent stuff altogether, right? Is I saw this, you know where I saw it and how I knew this was coming to fruition. It's very odd. You wouldn't think that it would come from this space. Mining. When they were making fun of miners years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, they were saying like, learn to code. Miners better learn to code because your job's going to go away, blah, blah. This was like, I think, before the first time that Trump got in. And so it was like 8 years ago. I don't know, whatever. And so from that, 2 years later, I saw this advertisement that blew me away. and I wish I could remember the company that put it up. I'm sorry that I can't. But it was when I started following NVIDIA and what NVIDIA was doing, and they are seriously. You think that GPT is doing stuff? NVIDIA is changing the way that business. And I wish I could put it in a different sentence than that, but that's pretty much it. Like if it, there a couple that we know talked about the fact that a full size factory, went up across the street from them within 3 weeks. From dirt to full factory, completed, everything, people working there, 3 weeks. Because that's all it takes now. Because NVIDIA's developed this software that can quite literally build your building for you in such detail as a model that you just walk out the door with the blueprint and just slap her together. Amazon does the same thing. I have yet to see a fulfillment center that's not up and running within 4 months from ground break, right? And it's because they've cookie cuttered the stuff, right? They figured out the most efficient methods of doing stuff, and it's only going to get better, which means it's only going to get cheaper to build buildings. If it only took you 3 weeks to throw up an entire office infrastructure, my God, man, that crew's not working very long, so they're not getting paid nearly as much as when it was a 6-month job, right? So, yeah, jobs are going to change, things are going to change, the evolution of business is going to change. You mentioned the singularity, and it's like to me, that's what it is. The singularity is the point at which humanity essentially not necessarily comes to terms with, because that would mean that we actually figured out how to do it. But it would be the point at which humanity at least understands and is faced with the fact that the world will never be the same again. Like ever. Like work will never be the same. The meaning of your life on a daily basis will never be the same. Like everything will change dramatically. And for the better. I'm not saying that it will, but balance. With good comes bad. So there's bound to be some balance aspect of it. I don't know what that's going to look like yet. But yeah, look, to me, this stuff only gets better as it goes further. The technology gets cheaper. It gets more efficient. The things we do with it become more efficient and become cheaper. So abundance starts to become a thing. And in a society where it is entirely ruled by supply and demand.
And scarcity.
And scarcity, yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're going to have it's going to be too easy to get things.
Yeah.
Right? If I have a robot and I don't have stuff in my house, I can ask the robot what materials it needs to build it. If I have a robot and I don't have the greatest car, even if I don't have a robot, if I have GPT and I don't have the greatest car, I have this assistant that I can now use to help me fix the car, help me work on it, get it back into working condition so I can go buy a $5,000 car and get it to an $8,000 value and drive it around. Right? So what I was getting at was the advertisement I saw had this person who wasn't necessarily meant to be a coal miner or whatever, but they had the safety helmet on. But on the inside of the safety helmet was this AR display that was literally showing them hey, here's the safety valve. Here's the levels of this thing over here. Here's the buttons that you need to push in order to do this. And it was doing a little list thing that was operations you got to follow. I was like, wow, that's ridiculous. That's amazing, right? And then 8 months ago, I basically saw a more advanced version of that with this dude that was trying to cook a meal in a kitchen. And so he was talking to this heads-up display, and it was not too long after the Ray-Ban glasses came out. So a few different people were doing some cool stuff with it. Somebody did a very cool thing, I think from either Harvard or Stanford, where they were able to actually put wiki into the model that was driving their glasses. And when they saw people that it recognized from Wikipedia, it would actually highlight them and pull up their data.
Oh, man.
Right. So that whole futuristic thing, right?
Yeah.
That's, technically we're there now, right? Somebody was able to do that. So that technology exists. When you hear these companies talking about we're developing things that we wouldn't have even known of for like 100 years or 200 years or something. That's literally us time traveling. We are now time traveling to a technology that we shouldn't necessarily have, right? That we would have had to other. This is why it's blowing your minds. This is why this stuff is just unimaginable to you, because it should have happened well after you were dead. Right? Most of us thought for sure, oh my God, stuff is, yeah, you're not going to have that till like 2200 or like 2080 or 2050 or something. Nope. Turns out it's like in the next couple of years, like 3-4 years, we're going to be like so far ahead of the game in terms of like artificial intelligence. If you look at it now, guys, like we're at the accelerating point of the straight line. We really are. If you don't think we are, you're sleeping. Because this latest model from OpenAI that was released, right? It was trained on artificial data. It was trained on two other models, trained one, and that's what we have now. And I can guarantee you that they're going to chain this one together and they're going to use that to train another one, right? They didn't even, like, I don't know, like maybe they're going to really, considering Strawberry trained Orion and Orion's pretty damn good. I don't know what Strawberry's like, but that's some ridiculous stuff, right? And if they have that doing their computer science research for them, boy, the next thing that's going to show up is it's going to be pretty ridiculous, right?
Yeah, and we still got 5 days of shipments left.
Yep.
So we're going to commit to you guys that we're going to recap all 12 days on this Friday show, Friday afternoon, to make sure we get that last announcement in there. And obviously, we love this stuff and we could talk about it day in and day out.
Yeah.
But an exciting week expected. We're going to have a fun show tomorrow with, let me get this. This is what happens when you don't,
with our first special guest, right?
prepare ahead of time. Mike Tedasco, gonna write a book and publish it to Amazon in real time inside of an hour, and that's gonna be super fun. And we're really excited to have Mike on the show. Me, George, and Nico will be there, grilling him while he does his stuff in the background. But I think he started very early in the show of talking about the book you've been writing.
Yep.
George has been working on one. Everybody's got a book they've been thinking about.
Yep.
Right, myself included. So I'm looking forward to January when we all publish something, because this last unlock of just seeing it happen, and maybe reducing expectations just a smidge to get it out the door, and treat it like the iterative process that it could be, with the help of AI doing a lot of that iteration work for us. So really excited for that show tomorrow, and we'll be hitting it in the morning each day this week before we go on a holiday break after this week. So exciting times as ever, and we'll definitely hope to see you tomorrow, when we're joined by Mike, and we build some more AI skills.
Yep.
Have a great week, everybody.
Yeah. So